All right, let's go to line number 4 right now. Standing by is Tom Licks. Tom Licks started a venture which has really taken off called Cleveland Whiskey. Hey, Tom, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, good morning. I'm glad to be here.
Hey, my pleasure. I've seen you on TV talking about this for the past couple of months. You can even invest in this. That sounds like a pretty good opportunity. But the first question here, well, first of all, what do you got? Whiskeys, bourbons? What do you put together here?
Well, right now, all we do are bourbons. We have about 9 different versions, all bourbon whiskeys. But in October, we are going to release our first rye. It's a rye that we finished with black cherry wood. It's pretty amazing.
Good. Okay, what's fascinating about Cleveland whiskey is the process. And typically, when you're making whiskey, it takes years. What is it, like 7 or 8 years or something when it comes to distilling, the distilling process?
Well, so it depends on what you're making, but generally whiskeys stay in barrels anywhere from 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 years. I'm not that patient a person. So we have a technology that changes all that. It changes the time it takes, but it also allows us to use things other than oak barrels. Every whiskey in the world uses an oak barrel to get anywhere, 60 to 80% of its flavor. We use oak because they hold liquid, but I'm using woods like black cherry and apple and hickory and honey locust and getting some amazing flavors out of them.
I like that. So how fast can you make this whiskey then?
Well, let me start by saying, you know what, age is really irrelevant. I'll tell you in a second, but we've done over 3,600 blind taste tests against one of the leading brands out there that takes 9 years to make traditionally. We've won in 3,600 blind taste tests. We've won 54% of the time. Their product takes 9 years to make. Ours is done within about 24 hours. So age really is irrelevant.
You changed the process from 9 years to 24 hours. Okay.
Yeah.
How did you do that, Mr. Licks? What can you tell us about that?
I'm sort of an amateur chemist. I'm a persistent amateur chemist. I heard about demand for imported bourbon going up in China and Europe and South America, Africa, and then also it started coming back here in the States. And I thought there would be this tsunami of market demand, and traditional practices means you've got to identify that 10 years in advance. You've got to make the stuff. You've got to wait patiently. And I just thought there would be a shortage, and it turns out that there was. And in the meantime, I've been experimenting in my basement, blowing up mason jars. My wife was convinced that at some point the police would arrive and knock down our door because a neighbor would report us as having a meth lab in the basement. She was thrilled when I moved it out into a laboratory, and now we have a facility in Cleveland. And we're likely going to build a much larger facility here in the next year or so, here in Cleveland.
That's awesome. Now, from start to finish, when you developed this process, how long did it take you to come up with this idea and to bring it to fruition?
Yeah, it took a long time. Now, we shipped our first bottles in March of 2013, so we're a little over 5 years old in terms of production. But I learned how to distill, over 40 years ago when I was in the Navy. There's a story behind that I don't tell in public, and when President Obama came to visit and take a tour of the facility, I didn't tell him that story either. So some things I keep close to the vest.
I understand.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to know that what you started is really taken off. And I'll tell you, I was at Twilight at the Zoo a couple of weeks ago, and I ran to your folks there. And I used to be a big Jack Daniels drinker. And then I turned to scotch, and then I stopped everything for a while just to clean up my act. And then I decided I love red wine now. But I figured, walking by there, okay, let me check this out. And I sipped that Cleveland whiskey, and it was absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
The beauty of our process, because it's so fast, we can keep experimenting. So what we make today is better than what we made 6 months ago. That was better than what we made the year before that, and so on. So we're still trying to make it better all the time, not trying to craft it back to some mythical story about a great-great-grandfather who had this great recipe and was a moonshiner. We're a technology company, and that's really our focus. We have over 1,200 individual investors because we've been doing online crowdfunding. We've done that a couple times now. we're doing it now. And I love the fact that we have all these small investors, many of them here in Cleveland and Ohio, but as far away as Singapore and Berlin and Paris and around the world. And they just, they speak for us and they're advocates for us, and it's worked out really well. You mentioned that we were doing a fundraiser. We've got one now that'll probably close out in a couple of weeks. And it's simply clevelandwhiskey.com/invest. And for as little as $100, somebody can go in and own a piece of Cleveland whiskey.
I like that. It's nothing like keeping it local and raising money in your own backyard. I love that. Yeah. So as little as $100. You got some big boys that are investing in this company as well?
We have some larger investors as well, and but I certainly like the small investors because I think that they're our customers too.
Yeah.
So when you own a piece of a company, you tell your friends, you tell your family, and I think that's how we're expanding. We're now distributed in 16 states. We're in about 5 countries, and we're doing pretty well.
I like that. Cleveland whiskey in 16 states. I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, Tom, I'm going to let you go. Please keep in touch with this. I'm going to check it out, and I might throw in a couple $100 and invest as well. How's that sound?
Sounds great to me.
Okay, buddy.
All right.
Cleveland
Thanks
Whiskey. All right, clevelandwhiskey.com. Clevelandwhiskey.com. Another great thing to come out of the city of Cleveland.